Swipe left, someone said something stupid. Swipe right, now I'm watching what you did. Backward down, now I'm at a disadvantage.
Today, we are changing the fork seals and we're adding some thicker fork oil. So a thicker viscosity fork oil. Before we get started, I want to go over a few things that you might need to do this. If you don't have a front stand that lifts the front of the bike by the triple tree, you're gonna have to improvise. You're gonna need your fork seals. I got a brand new Yamaha OEM fork seal kit. So you're gonna wanna grab yourself some fork oil. You can just stick with the OEM spec fork oil, or you could grab yourself some thicker viscosity. It's up to you. I grabbed Maxima 10 weight because this was recommended by a lot of the guys on the forums. It's gonna reduce a lot of the front end diving whenever I get on the brakes hard. You're also going to want to grab a fork spring compressor tool. You can buy it off Amazon. It's like $70 and it comes with everything you need. The fork spring compressor. It has a measuring gauge so you can fill the fluid because you want to get that dialed in perfectly. You want to add the same amount of fluid that was in it. This is a 2010 Yamaha R6. Before you get started, you want to write down your preload, your rebound, and your compression measurements. So if you're not familiar with this, go watch a video on it. But you're gonna have to take all this stuff and zero it out. So you want to write down what yours is set at if you have your suspension tuned. If not, it's still beneficial to you to write down what it's set at. And then whenever you're finished, you can put this all back to the spec that you had it on before. So I'm gonna demonstrate on this fork. So I'll just take this one and do my measurements for you guys just so you can see what I'm talking about. So on the fork, there's little lines and you can just kind of see how far you have it out. But you wanna take this bad boy and zero it all the way out. So you wanna count your turns. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5.5 turns, and that's zeroed out. So that's your preload adjuster. You want to go write that down somewhere so you can have it saved. We're gonna move on to the rebound, and then I'll do the compression last. So for the rebound, you want to turn it to the left to go fully soft. So you'll just count clicks all the way until it stops. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I only had 5 clicks of rebound. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Onto the compression, you're gonna zero this baby out. You're gonna go to the left and count your clicks. And essentially what this is doing is it's opening the valve so that the fluid can pass through very easily. And that's gonna help drain all the old fluid out. So once you've got all that stuff zeroed out, you can work on removing the front wheel. So before we pull all this stuff off completely, I want to crack this top cap off of the fork because I don't have a vise, so I'm gonna have no way to hold it still and tight in place. So just pop that free on both sides, and then you can go ahead and start loosening your clamps on your triple trees.
I put my headphones on, I play my favorite song, I go to sleep and try again. Mama used to try and tell me no man is an island, but I think I feel like drifting away. Mama used to say tomorrow never comes, so make the most, but I think I am done with today.
Alright, so I got both forks out now, and I just wanted to show you guys this. If you can see, it's kind of hard to see, but there's fork oil on the fork, which means that the fork seal is leaking and it's compromised, so it needs to be replaced. It's leaking pretty bad. So that's a no-go. You definitely want to replace this ASAP because this can leak down and get on your brake pads. Soak the pads in fluid, they're not going to stop, and you're going to get yourself in trouble. So definitely replace them if you spot any kind of leak. Just get them checked out. So I made myself a little workstation. You want to put all of the internals on something clean like paper towel or any kind of surface that's clean. I'm going to disassemble both forks. I'm going to ratchet strap it to that just because I don't have anything to hold it up, so I'm just going to ratchet strap it to that. And then I'm going to take the internals out. I'm going to dump the old oil into there. First thing I'm going to do is pull that top cap off, let that oil drain. While that oil drains, I'm going to pull that top cap off and let that oil drain, and then I can get started on this one. I don't know if you can see that, but there's like a cloudy, like, it looks like metal shavings. And I wanted to explain what that was because that all comes out last because usually it's sitting at the bottom of the fork cartridge. So what that cloudy metally flake is actually the spring. The spring compresses and it doesn't really stay straight. It kind of grinds against the outer shell or the inner shell of the fork. So when it does that, it just shaves off little tiny bits of metal, and that metal can collect in the bottom of the fork, and then it can kind of mess things up because the more metal you have in your fork oil, it's just not really helping. So it can settle in the bottom of your fork, and you have the compression adjuster down here. So if all of that settles down here, it can get stuck in here. It can stop the flow up of this. It can just throw off the balance. It can be really inconsistent, and you don't want that to happen. So you want to replace this stuff ASAP and get that old fork fluid out. Important that you do this, you know, relatively often. It just depends on your riding style and how often you ride the bike. That's a little tech tip for you. So this kit comes with sandpaper so you can sand the fork and make the surface nice and smooth for the next fork seal, the new fork seal. It comes with an attachment rod that you twist onto the top. We'll use that later. Fork compressing tool, you just gotta twist those in to the grooves. We'll show you that later. And then this is a cap, you just slide it in so that you can get to the bottom nut and undo the top cap. So what you want to do is you want to grab your compressor, which is this circle ring. It's going to go over, and then these are going to twist in, and what they're going to do is they're going to sit right in these holes. There's one on both sides, so I'll spin it around so you can see. What you want to do is set this over, take this, twist it in, then you want to put the other one in on the other side. Twist them all the way. And now I can push down on this tool on. I couldn't do it by myself. I took a ratchet strap, I ran it underneath my trackside wheel chock to each side of this puller. So I can ratchet strap this down, then I can pull this bad boy up, and that little sliding tool underneath that nut so I can loosen it and take the top cap off. to pull this bottom compression adjuster out because there's fluid that sits at the bottom of here, and if you don't pull it out, that's just old fluid. And like I said before, that metal that's collecting is just going to be chilling down here. So when you do a fluid swap, you're just leaving bad fluid inside of there, and it's just going to mix with the new fluid. Take an adjustable wrench, just be easy, make the edge flat, and then break that baby loose, and then drain that fluid out of there. And I'll show you guys in a second how much fluid is actually in the bottom of the fork. There's a good amount of fluid in that bottom half. So. Alright, so now you gotta pull off your dust shield. This kind of like wicks away the dirt and just swipes the fork clean before the actual fork seal comes in contact with it. So this keeps a lot of dirt and debris out from actually getting to the fork seal, but eventually over time this weakens and then dirt gets in there and it just eventually fails, and that's how you get leaky fork seals. Look closely, you can see there's a little metal ring in there, a little washer. I'll pull that out. See if I can slide out the fork seal. So I'm just going around in circles, giving it some pressure. Don't push too hard, but just give it some light, even pressure. It should come out. You just want to finesse it out of there. There it is. And that's your old fork seal. This side that is round faces down, so there's a sharp edge that's flat, and you have a round side. The round side sits facing down inside of the fork. Here's your Yamaha part number. This is the swiper. Over it, and then you're just gonna give it some light pressure. Don't slam it down, but hit it down onto this base, and that will push this evenly in and seat it. There you go, it's all seated. Once you get your new fork seal and swiper on, you want to take this stuff, clean it up. You want to add some fork oil to the bottom down here at your compression adjuster. But before I fill this up, I'm gonna put a little bit of fresh oil in there and then dump it out into the old oil. That way I can just clean out all of the metal debris that sits at the bottom here. Tighten this cap back on. Just give it a little bump. You don't need like a bunch of torque on this. Just get it tight on there and it's good to go. You can start to reassemble the guts of the fork. Alright, so now you want to put your fork back in a vise and make sure that the fork swiper is seated all the way down to the base. You want to fill this up all the way to the top of the inner cartridge. Don't go past that. And then you'll hear it kind of bubble and you'll see bubbles kind of coming up. So it's going down some. Put a little more. So now you want to get your rod, twist it on, and then you want to pull this thing up and down slowly. So you're going to want to keep pumping that fluid until you get some resistance on the way up and down. And then if it smoothly drops like that, you'll know that most of the air is out. It doesn't hurt to just keep doing this. If you look down in there, you can actually see like bubbles will pop up as you do it. It's gonna get harder and harder. Then once it gets kind of really hard, you wanna take it to the top, then let go. And if it drops smoothly, that's how you know all the air bubbles have escaped. Add a little bit more fluid, just because it dropped down, and I can kind of see air bubbles are still rising. So I'm gonna do this maybe like 10 more times. Yep, that's good. I'm gonna take your gauge, your fork oil gauge, and essentially what this is gonna do is there's a hole in this little tip. So you take this, you stick it inside of here, and you suck the oil out. And whenever you set the height, there's an air gap. So you'll find out whatever that air gap is for your make, like 2006, 2008. I think 2008 and up, they're all the same length. But I looked online and it says from 110 to 120. So you can do 110 or 115, 120. It's up to you, just do your research. So I'll measure this, I'll set this to that length, and then I'll stick it in there, and I'll pull the excess fluid out, put it back in the bottle, do it one more time just to make sure, and then that's your air gap. So before you put the cap on, I did a lot of reading on this, and it's quite confusing, but you want to open the rebound adjuster all the way until it stops, and then count 50 clicks in. So you're gonna take your flathead, you're gonna twist that until you get to 50 clicks, and then you wanna put your jam nut on and bottom it all the way out, and then take it off the bottom, then put this on. Make sure you have the preload rod in, and then you want to take this and spin it until it stops, and you'll feel it kind of bottom out because it kind of won't really want to twist anymore. The whole rod will kind of twist. So whenever you get there, you can confirm that you've bottomed it out by twisting the top clockwise, and if it doesn't twist, then you know you've bottomed out. So see, I can't twist it, so I know it's bottomed out. So now I want to snug that up some, raise the jam nut up to this cap, and then I'm gonna snug it. And then I take this back 10 clicks, counterclockwise. Then I want to fully tighten this. Alright, Alright, so this fork's all finished. Once you get the fork put back together fully, you want to kind of test it out. So just find yourself like a rag or something that you can put over your hand, and then you want to make sure that it bottoms out. So yeah, it's doing pretty good. So I'm going to throw you guys on the time lapse while I do this other fork. Alright guys, so I put the bike back together last night. Whenever you fix your bike, just do a bolt check. So go over all of the bolts that you touched, like any bolts on the triple tree, the clamps, anything down here. You just want to go over all this stuff and make sure that you tighten everything back up before you take the bike out and test it. Also, you want to zero out all of your compression and rebound adjusters. If you did do a thicker oil, if you didn't, you can just put it back to the same spec you had it before, and it should be the same. It shouldn't really be any different. But I did thicker oil, so I zeroed out the compression, zeroed out the rebound, and I dialed it in. I took the bike out last night. It was kind of cold, so I couldn't really test it too much. But one thing you want to do as well, whenever you get done doing the fork swap on the seals, you want to check over the seals, make sure that everything still looks okay. You don't want to have any residue or leaks. If there is residue and leaks, then something in here is compromised and you may have to take it apart. You might be able to put a little sleeve in there and see if there's any dirt, but more than likely something isn't right inside of here. There might be some dirt or something on the seal that's letting fluid through, but you want to check all this stuff and make sure whenever you're done testing the bike if it's leaking. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's video. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to comment down below. I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you for watching. We'll see.